Delos, black, please. Thank you.
Every mind you come across is a potential lesson.
Right.
So never mind if love is lost, long as you gain direction. I learned in time I had to raise my vibe to raise a question.
These opening lines right here are a direct result of a lesson that I had learned in my life right around the time I was writing this album, right? And this lesson should be an obvious one to most people, you would think, but it's a very difficult one to master in reality. And this is the lesson of understanding that when relationships come to an end, when they falter, or when they don't live up to the standard that you have set forth for them, this is not a reason to become bitter, angry, or to lose your composure in any way. This is more of a reason for you to look at the experiences gained from that relationship, the ideas that person represented in the relationship, and draw meaning from that. Whether or not you agree with the person or the way they behaved or things that they did is irrelevant. What's relevant is that you take all of this information and use it as a guide. This is what I mean by direction, right? The other point to this opening line that's so ill, right, is that this can also be applied to former versions of yourself that you also once loved and you have difficulty moving on from. But the experiences you learned while traveling as that former version of yourself should also lend direction to you in the future. Now, the bars that follow that, right? Raise my vibration in order to raise a question. What I'm saying here is that I realized that I had to be in harmony with myself, right? I needed to be composed at all times, unaffected and less emotional when I'm being responsive to certain things. Once someone does that, now you strengthen yourself and your message in a way, right, that now you can raise a question. What I meant by that is a positive frequency, a truth frequency. In order for you to do that, you need to be in harmony with yourself, right? Now you can really get to a place where you can start saying, yo, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't seem to line up. Or you can say, yo, I don't like the way you did this in this relationship. I don't think that I'm being treated fairly. So until you've mastered self, these expressions of anger or opposition to somebody who doesn't think the way you think, or a relationship that faltered, this starts to seem futile, because self-mastery is what should precede any type of judgment of that kind, right? Or any reaction of that kind. And the paradox is that once self-mastery is in place, these reactions no longer serve you. They have no value, right? So that was the math on that line right there.
Even the brokest man inside the room could pay attention.
Of course, it's very self-explanatory, but the depth in it is that this can be applied to broken-hearted, broken-spirited. This is not just a monetary thing, right? No matter what position you in, it's still free, you know what I mean? For you to apply your focus, to apply your composure. All of these things are still there for you to apply. So you can use pay attention as be in the now, be in the moment, be present with yourself, be one, be true with yourself. All of this whole section of lines in the beginnings all plays off each other, right? Something else I'd like to point out about those lines is that around this time when I was going through these emotions and having these revelations about how I should react and respond to certain things, I was reading two books. One of them is this one, Seneca on Anger. This is a beautiful book. I bought this book for $3 in a used bookstore. Found it by chance one day. I was familiar with Seneca, but I had never read this text right here. I would have paid $30,000 for this book right here. You know what I mean? And in truth, it's priceless. What it's done for me in my life is priceless. The jewels that I extracted from it. This is something you need to pick up. Essentially, this makes a mockery of anger, and it makes you feel like a fool for ever being angry, especially being angry over things that are minuscule. You know what I mean? So definitely a recommendation for anybody who's ever dealt with these kind of issues, ever wanted to fucking crack somebody's head open. Seneca on anger is a good one. There's a quote from that book that goes a little something like this. A false and a childish sorrow is appeased with as false and as childish a revenge.
Play with conviction, be mindful who you play offensive. A man who lacks in heart and heft could always pay a henchman.
This section of lines right here is more or less an expression of caution, right? When I say play with conviction, I mean keep your game face on while you going through all these things, while you learning about yourself, while you're figuring things out about others, while you're reaching new heights and understanding. Keep your game face on, you know what I mean? But at the same time, be mindful who you play offensive while you take that stance. Because a lot of times what you see, and I'm sure that many of us can relate to this, people come across those who might be at a lower level in life than them. Maybe they are smaller than them. Maybe they don't have as many friends or as big of a crew or clique. And what you see oftentimes is that people usually tend to downplay, be more aggressive with these kind of people because they feel that there's an immediate advantage either in size, courage, or leverage, right? What I'm saying here in these bars is the greatest assassinations are not done by people who behave that way, who prey on the smaller or prey on people who are more timid or more quiet or less inclined to be aggressive when they're out in public or dealing in any kind of business or field. So I think it's important that people really get a grip on this, that these costumes that people wear and these images that people put forth do not serve them when it's time to actually take action. They are simply just smoke and mirrors.
Blind subjects, loyal to idols, they can't describe crime suspects, anointed with oil between the eyes.
This pair of bars right here is so illmatic, man. My initial intent with the first bar in this pair was referencing celebrity worship. When I say blind subjects, I'm talking about the people who just praise and worship essentially these celebrities and these stars and these idols with reckless abandon, with no concern for the actual effect that they might have on children with the content that they're putting out. No regard for the message being sent overall to the consumer. But nevertheless, it also has a double meaning. It also serves to represent an expression of so many people do actually practice idolatry and worship certain kinds of iconography and imagery, right? And many of these people who you find who will bow down to statues and, you know, things like that, you ask them why they do it and what it means to them, or ask for the historicity of the piece or the image or the name of the saint, and a lot of times what you get is that people have a difficulty explaining why they even do these things. And I found that interesting. I found a certain parallel there with the celebrity worship stance. So what I did is I kind of blended those two ideas and really just worded it in a way where it could represent both. Now the line after that is crazy. This is something that happened in East New York, Brooklyn. I was on Linden Boulevard and Fountain Avenue, Cypress Hills Projects. I was coming from the projects where I was living at the time, and I was walking with a homeboy of mine. We were going maybe 2 blocks up to grab something, and when we got to the corner of Linden and Fountain, we seen 2 women. One was a bit older, and one was a bit younger, probably around my age. I was maybe 30 around that time. She said if I had heard the word of God and if I was familiar with the Gospels. And I said I was, and I understood them pretty deeply. I had a pretty decent knowledge of them. And we began speaking a little bit. And I explained to her that I did not have religion, although I still had God, and I would never let God go. And she wasn't exactly pleased with that or satisfied, but she did seem to appreciate it and have a soft spot for that sort of understanding. Nevertheless, she asked me if I would allow her to anoint me, right? And for a second, I was a bit hesitant, but nevertheless, I agreed. And I said, sure. My homeboy agreed too. So she pulled out a vial of oil, and the oil had these flakes in it at the bottom. I asked her, what's in the oil? She told me Those are gold flakes. That's real gold inside the oil. She gave me the anointing right in between my eyes, and I carried on. You know, it's something I thought about for a long time in my life too. And I still think about it to this day. It's a very interesting night from my life for different reasons, because there were other things going on that night, right? But that's a whole nother story for
I
sure.
seen the highs and the lows, fiends in the pit, excavate the rock at the bottom to take another
Now,
hit.
this section of bars right here is one of my personal favorite in the song. It's important to me because it deals with something that I've dealt with a lot in my own personal life, and also concerning friends and family in my lineage as well. And it's dealing with substance abuse, right? It's a bit morbid when you really take an analytical look at it, but I wanted it to be that way because what I was trying to say is important, right? It's not just how clever I'm being with the words while I'm saying what I'm saying. It's the actual content of what I'm saying. The highs and the lows, fiends in the pit, right? So the highs, the fiends, the lows, the pit, right? These are relative to each other, directly relative to each other. Now, often you hear this term, I hit rock bottom. This usually means when somebody feels like they can no longer travel on the path they're on because they're getting high, right? And they don't want to get high no more. They finally hit rock bottom. But in reality, what I've seen is that many people will say this time and time again, and even have clear signs in their life showing that they are at an extremely low point, a point that may be lower than anybody else they've ever seen or anybody else you've ever seen. And you would indeed call this rock bottom if you saw it, right? But they'll go and they'll get high again, they'll relapse again, they'll fall victim again, because this is indeed a disgusting, vile, and vicious disease, right? So the expression is, seen fiends in the pit, excavate the rock at the bottom. When they hit rock bottom, excavate the base of that bottom and smoke that. Meaning they will take the worst situation they got in their life, begin to make it better, and then do exactly what they've been doing. You hear a lot of stories about people getting their houses robbed when family lets them back in to stay with them. A lot of different wild stories, right? And that was my expression there, because these are things I've experienced in my own personal life, right? And it's a morbid one, but it is something that I do feel is important to express. I would also like to add to that explanation and analysis that if you are dealing with substance abuse or addiction, there is a way out, and you can and will get better the second that you truly choose to. And without a doubt, I believe in you with all my heart.
Slip the boys in the alley, slid boy to Miss Sally, kept poised to the noise, dissipated, they ain't grab me. No, sir. I brag gladly, cause had they nabbed me, they'd laugh.
Now these bars here are ill, right? Because what I'm expressing is that I fit the exact mold of the archetype I illustrated in the previous bars about fiends always going back to doing things that they said they would never do again. So here I am doing something I said I would never do again, right? And this is where you get, slid the boys in the alley saying I got rid of the police. I dipped them, you know what I mean? And slid boy to Miss Sally. Now, this is an expression of me returning something to an older person, a lady who was essentially like a matriarch in my neighborhood for many different reasons. Not a perfect person by any stretch of the imagination, but a very, very beautiful and authentic soul nonetheless. And she was having a situation where police were essentially entering her home illegally, and she may have had some things in there that she shouldn't have, and myself and a couple of other people helped those things be removed from the premises, and it was successful because I didn't end up back in jail, right? So what I'm saying in this situation, this is not me bragging about the actual crime being committed and the illegal activity. I'm bragging about not going back to where I had come from, right? But me saying, going into the story about it is building off of how fiends always go back to doing things that they said they would never do again.
Close call, holy yakisoba, soup to shore, sock and soap, locker loaded, I was too involved.
These are all nightmarish references from prison, right? So yakisoba and soup du jour are two different meals that are served throughout the state, but you always get them no matter what, at least once or twice a week or something like that. And they are literally gruel, you know what I mean? Like slop. Yakisoba is essentially, I cannot describe it to you, but soup du jour, I could paint a little better of a picture for you. This is, what happens is they take all of the food that wasn't passed out to inmates in about a 3 to 4 day span. It's usually noodles of various different types of shapes, rice that wasn't eaten, carrots, peas, corn, stuff like that. They take it all, they throw it in the pot, they mix it up, and then they take that and put it in a bowl and give it to you. That's called soup du jour. It is disgusting. Now, sock and soap is a different thing, right? Sock and soap is essentially a makeshift MacGyver prison version of a ball and mace, let's say, right? So this is a weapon that you craft from two simple pieces of material, right? A bar of soap, Corecraft soap, which is hard as adamantium, and just a classic state-issued tube sock, right? Locker loaded is a reference to having my personal locker being full of all types of food and cigarettes and stamps and all kinds of things as a result of being involved in different things within the prison. All negative. So when I say I was too involved, that's the true statement. I'm using all these things as negative references to when I was there, and this is why I'm happy that I didn't get caught. This is why I'm bragging that I don't have to do these things no more and be that person that I was when I was incarcerated.
Moving on, used to pawn jewels back to their previous owners,
Right.
devious corners, before all these cameras was on us, canisters on us, sliding like banisters on them.
Now, this group of expressions right here are all essentially me hearkening back to my youth. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a time that doesn't exist no more. Before social media, before everyone had a camera in their hand or in their pocket, or on their chest or on their head, before there was cameras all over the place. Essentially, I'm just hearkening back to that time because for me, it was essentially a different reality. It was a much more dangerous place in many ways, and it made people behave in a much, much different way, right? And when you hear the expression of sliding like banisters on them, it's a double meaning. I'm essentially saying, yeah, I'm talking about moving militant in a negative way when I was younger, but I'm also using sliding down the banister as a reference to being younger, to cap off the whole expression, to let you know that this is all, you know, coming from a time when I was in my youth, right?
Banish your aura from my light field and pay the light bill. Play the bag close and run a couple light drills.
This right here at the end, I think, is the most important part of the song, in my personal opinion, of course, right? Because when I'm saying banish your aura from my light field and pay the light bill, this is a reference to me using my craft, my intelligence, my art to make an honest living, right? So banish your aura from my light field. When I say light field, that's a reference to the light that shines forth from a person in regards to the art that they create to try to uplift people's spirits, right? And when there's negativity trying to infringe on that kind of art, I got to do my job with the pen to dispel that, right? But I happen to get paid for that job, right? So keeping the lights on in music and in art and within the hearts of people also keeps the lights on in my apartment. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, banish your aura from my light field and pay the light bill. Play the bag close and run a couple light drills, right? So play the bag close means this bag, this money that I get from making an honest living through my art, I play that close. Run a couple light drills means practicing my craft, honing the skills, staying on my job, you know what I'm saying? But it also reflects me taking a walk out to my patio and hitting that heavy bag, running a couple light drills. The beauty of it all is that the whole section represents positivity, you know what I mean, through art, uplifting people's spirits, paying your bills and making sure that you're financially and fiscally responsible and staying healthy, you know what I mean? And keeping yourself prepared to be able to protect, defend your family, be able to provide for your family for as long as you can because you a temple custodian. You know what I mean? You essentially paying your bills in that sense too. You know what I mean? When you hit the bag, when you go to the gym, do the calisthenics, go get some cardio in. When you decide to go to sleep early, right? You paying your health bill. You know what I mean? When you say, I'm not going to eat that. I'm gonna eat this instead. Or you know what? I'm not going to eat today, period. These are all positive things. And I think that these are some of the most important things that we can express in our music. And for me, they've changed my life and nourished and enriched my life in ways. I mean, the practice, you know what I mean? So these are always things I want to include in my music and relate to other people. Word though. That's my verse on the song Gnosis. You can find that song on the album Ninja Vanish by me and my brother A1, entirely produced by True Cypher. Peace to Rim the Villain for the immaculate verse. We out of here.